Welcome back to the Fixed Ops Roundtable. I'm Sarah Vantine here with Ted Ings. Today we have Evenflow with us and a special guest. And Ted, we're going to be unpacking a little bit more about strategies and challenges that service scheduling may have for our dealers.
It's a really exciting topic, and we've got the man front and center. Dave Anderson from Evenflow is with us. Dave, welcome back to the Fixed Ops Roundtable.
Thanks. I'm excited to be here.
You are really challenging the status quo with the way our industry has long thought about scheduling service and service appointments. So, congratulations on that. You're getting a lot of attention, and we met a few months back with Sarah at Las Vegas at the NADA in person, and we've got a couple
Mhm.
questions today. And if you don't mind,
Yeah.
for our audience, we want to learn more about what Evenflow does.
Sure, sure.
Well, Dave, to kick things off, service scheduling has been a hot topic because dealerships are looking to maximize the number of vehicles that are coming into their shop. But what are you seeing that is the biggest challenge today with service scheduling?
I would say the single biggest issue in the industry right now is the standard practice of what I call counting cars or scheduling by like appointment slot. So it's like I'll take four at 7 a.m., another four at 7:15, another four at 7:30. So that practice of just scheduling of counting cars, that's the single biggest challenge in the industry right now.
Wow, that makes a lot of sense, and that's long been the practice, Dave. And uh, tell us, in your estimation, why is this practice so common?
From my conversations with other service managers and fixed ops leaders, I see typically like two issues that kind of come up of why this is the common practice. First is there's a mindset of we should be scheduling with the front of the house in mind, right? Like if I have a certain number of advisors, I can only check in so many cars at a time, and so I want to make sure my schedule is aligned with how the advisors can take in the work. Then the other practice, and then the challenge actually with that though is there's a mismatch between what the advisor capacity is and the technician capacities of how they're doing the work, right? And then the second case is where technicians, service managers are really trying to think about the technician capacity, but they don't have the right tools to schedule. So they rely on the law of averages. So they might say, I got 100 hours, of production capacity. Repair orders 2 hours. I can take 50 cars. And then they're just kind of treating a day as a day and base it on the law of averages. And then they break it up by counting cars of those 50 cars across the day there.
Sure.
Well, and Dave, this is, as you mentioned, this has been a pain point in a lot of different dealerships. And, all these different dealerships have so many different sizes for their service lanes and their shops. So, what are some of the operational issues, specifically with scheduling by counting cars?
Yeah, so let me just walk you through a couple of examples and maybe a big picture before I get into the details. I would say you get two challenges. One is bottlenecks, where you have too much work coming in, and the second is where you have spoiled tech hours, where you don't have enough work for the technicians there. And hopefully, I can illustrate this through some simple examples. So, um, what you see on the screen here is just hypothetically, let's just say it's an express service shop that's got four advisors and 12 technicians, and you're going to schedule by counting cars of what's in the front of the house. So you say, oh, okay, I have four advisors, I'll take four appointments every 15 minutes and I'll be able to appropriately check it in. Now, one of the challenges is if you got the staffing all starting at the same time at 7 a.m. Well, in a perfect dispatch world, right, maybe the first four technicians get a job right away, and then eight are waiting, right? Then at 7:15, you get another four checked in and dispatched, and so now you got eight technicians with a job, and four are waiting. And it's not until like 7:30 that you actually get enough jobs in there to be able to dispatch out to all the technicians on the staff. So The advisors are happy. It's flowing in the way they can do it. Manage one car every 15 minutes. But the implication in even the simple example, and we see commonly, is you've got 5 to 6% of your production capacity wasted before your day even really begins, just because you've got the mismatch of the advisor schedule or capacity with the technician capacity.
So we're starting off on the wrong foot, you're saying.
Yeah, yeah, you're just it's kind of like you're taking a test and you're going to say I'm going to give up 5 points on the test. I'll start with the best I can do as a 95, right? Like you're just giving away points for free, you know.
Good analogy. Great
Yeah.
analogy.
And then, so then if, even in this example, if you were to carry it through, right, like eventually there's an equilibrium here where like you're checking in for every 15 minutes and it's working with sort of the technicians to be able to turn them. But fundamentally, this is like has to be a perfect system in this simple example, right? Like, um, if there's if there's walk-ins, all of a sudden this all gets out of whack. Right now you've got two other jobs in here. If there was two walk-ins that were unaccounted, and then you've got either basically jobs waiting that are queuing up, or you're also assuming that you can get all the jobs in this express
Mm,
turned in 45 minutes. And that's basically, handcuffing both the technicians and advisors to doing upsell, right? Doing the proper inspections and talking to the customers about, recommended and needed services for the safety of their vehicle or the lifetime operation of the vehicle. So you're really constraining by time how much the technicians and advisors can actually do. They have
sure.
to turn them every 45 minutes. And if you do upsell, let's just say you upsell a brake fluid service or alignment, right? Like
Mm,
all of a sudden you've got a bottleneck. Now, the advisor and the technician did everything that they should. It's a right, service for the customer. You're recommending what they need for their vehicle. From the dealership, you're doing the right steps to be, pulling through these upsell services. Operationally, you just caused a problem. You get a bottleneck there. So all of this is like, you have to have like almost a perfect system even in this example to be able to pull it through. And then if it can show you the next example here, um, this is just even if the staffing is a little bit different. So let's
right.
just say you got four advisors and 10 technicians for on staff, right? You
Sure.
still have the same problem of like, okay, four starting in the morning, and, you can dispatch four out right away, and then six are waiting now. You know, but then what'll happen is that because you keep checking in four at every 15 minutes, you get jobs queuing up with the technicians because you've only got 10. And so every 45 minutes, you're going to get two jobs queued up. So you're going to just create this backlog. This is only at 8:15, at
Sure.
9:15, you're at six jobs backlog. And that's assuming there's zero walk-ins, right? And then you could get even more. And that's assuming you're not even doing any upsells. Again, that's counter to what's best interest for the customer and also for the dealership. So this thing can definitely get off the rails fast, in this scenario as well. So it just it's just really the challenge of like looking at it from the advisor capacity and the
Sure.
pure mismatch of what the technician capacity is and how you can operationally pull all that work through.
There's a mismatch there, and you're pointing it out exactly how it happens. That's real world stuff. And Sarah, you and I know there's going to be walk-ins. There's going to be things that take longer. The customer, someone needs a ride back to work. There's all kinds of issues there.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
yeah.
then then the second root cause, and I get this all the time, of like I know what my shop can do. Like I just got a simple example here. This is a Toyota dealership, and I specifically chose them because I think Toyota, Honda's, they're more common set of work across engines and model years. And so and it's not at the same variability as say like a CDJR store, right? So
Sure.
even in this example, if you said simplistically 155 hours of daily production capacity of the technicians and they're averaging 1.55 hours per RO, well, that would say, well, you need 100 appointments or 100 cars. But if you look at the graph there, there's a huge amount of variability, on the hours per RO that can come in. This is just for a 30-day period of a Toyota dealership. And all this could mean is like, on one day, 10 extra diags that you weren't expecting on average, right? Or 10 other like hybrid cable, recall work, or 10 less, right? You got 10,
Sure.
10 less jobs and they're just more basic oil change, rotate, or simple fluid service. So that's where you get these same like peaks and valleys of huge variability. And so, yeah, every good service manager I've talked to, they've got it dialed in. They know it's 1.55 hours per RO. It's just that that's the average. On any given day, there could be huge swings there. And if you just on the next slide, just to show you some of the consequences, this is just like the
Wow.
the shop loaded versus the capacity. And so what you'd want to be is exactly at say 0%, right? Like
Hmm.
it's perfectly dialed in, and it almost looks like an EKG, a reading of the heart, which is probably what the service managers have
That's
at
probably how it.
yeah, like of the day-to-day stress. So the stress of like, on the day where it's like 20, 25%, what that means is like you've loaded 20% more work than the shop can handle. So they're just probably running around, how do we just get through the end of the day, right? And then you've got days that are 20% less. And so then it's the equal heart attack problem of like we have no work, right? And then the technicians are stopping by your office saying, "Hey, boss, you got any jobs for me? Or do you want to cut me loose?" But it's just that gets into this spoiled tech hours there. So this day-to-day variability is really the one of the key challenges of even the law where the law of averages breaks down time and time again.
Yeah, you're so right. Very clear here. Yes.
And then this is something that whenever I show data like this to a service manager, they are always intuitively they buy into it, but they've just never seen it before. And so it's really the consequence of a bottleneck. And this is what happens that we see time and time again is that in order to manage customer experience and they're worried about the bottlenecks, the service departments are trying to move cars through and they're trying to move more cars through in the same amount of time, right? Because they've got a backlog. And the only way you can physically do that is to do less work, right? If I'm going to, instead of taking my time with 5 ROs, I'm going to try to get like 8 ROs in the same amount of time down. I have to spend less time. And so we see this quantitatively all the time within the data. This is a Honda dealership where, where it's loaded well, they're averaging 1.9 hours per RO. When they get overloaded, it's 1.7. And you can see the dollar per RO impact. And so you just start multiplying this out. There's say if you have 100 ROs, a day, that's like 20 labor hours a day where you're losing in the bottleneck, right? And just add that up over time, and there's huge amount of inefficiencies with this, of overloading the shop of too much work at any given time.
So, Dave, you're showing us the consequences to the dealership in terms of lost service gross and capturing a smaller percentage of service potential.
Yeah, yeah. And when we zoom out and look at like the dealerships we work with, we we usually see that maybe they're capturing like 70% of their service revenue potential in aggregate. And it's going to be both of these factors. There's either technicians on the clock where that they're not, at spoiled time where they're not, being able to flag any hours, or there's these bottlenecks, right? And so then they're just instead of flagging 1.9 hours per RO, they're only getting 1.7. If they could just move that and pace it out throughout the day where they can just like fully service each vehicle with the proper attention, right? Like then they can capture that 30% revenue gap there.
This is such exciting information, Dave. And, for our audience, I know this is a very hot topic in the industry as dealers look for an alternative to the traditional method of counting cars. For our audience that wants to find out more and
Mhm.
and see how your strategies would work and your technology would work for their individual service departments and stores, what's the best first step for them to reach out to you?
So always just the contact information of the email or my phone number, or if website, contact us form. But I think my email and phone number is scrolling through, so always just reach out to me directly on all of that.
And Dave, you're working with dealerships now. You're integrated with a lot of the tools they have now. You're in a
Mhm.
very exciting space. So you're making great strides in the industry. Like you said earlier, it's done it one way for a long time, but it's obvious that we're going to keep repeating the same behavior and getting the same results if we continue. So
Yeah, yeah, and I think for me, what's important is that it's not that like we're hard coded of like we have our own approach that's like another sort of box like counting cars, and the service manager has to stick within this. I think what the aim is we're really trying to be flexible, on how each service manager would want to load the shop. And what I think what there's a few elements that are really key with this is like we want to schedule off of what I call true demand. So it's not only what is put in the appointment, but then what do we predict on top of that? And the example I always give is like I have 100,000 miles on my Honda Odyssey, and I schedule an oil change or an A1 service. I'm going to end up with more work on my repair order. So we better account for that, right? And then we also need to adjust that based on technician efficiency, and how the teams might be able to either beat the clock or be slower than the clock, depending on the labor hours. And then always load it against like the technician capacity of when they clock in and clock out during the day and across the week. Now, we have the flexibility to layer in other constraints like advisors' ability to check in cars at the front a house, because it's a very real concern of like if I have four advisors, I don't want 18 cars showing up at 7 a.m. and like now you've got another backlog showing up outside the drive, right? So we can factor that in. We can factor in things like transportation or recalls or parts constraints, and then walk-ins as well. But ultimately, what we're trying to do is extract that algorithm from the service manager, and then figure out how to like bring it to life, for them. And and it's not coming in hard coded of like, hey, this is our way, we know better. It's really like we want to learn from them. Tell us how you want to do it, and then we will configure it in a way that can adjust and account for these issues of spoiled tech time and bottlenecks.
And Dave, you're already up and running. You're in dealerships
Yeah,
today,
yeah.
and you're already integrated with a lot of the technology that the dealerships have. If you don't mind, just take a minute and tell us about that because I think that's really exciting.
Yeah, so people often ask like, how are we integrated? Like generally, we're syncing up like real time with the near real time with the DMS, a back and forth with pushing and pulling information, and that's kind of how we're fully integrated. But we have integrations with service lanes tools. We're integrating with the AI scheduling agents out there. So other different tech stacks like we have the ability to integrate, and I'm always open to integrate with anyone who wants to is open to integrating with us. I think an open environment is the best thing for the dealerships or common customers for this. And as you said, we are up and running, and what we're have been able to do is many case studies of closing that gap of that 30% revenue decrease. So like we've shown 20-30% revenue increases, and at the end of the day, we're just trying to get a better flow of work through the shop that like avoids spoil time, but also give the team the ability to fully service all the vehicles from it.
Exciting stuff, sir.
Very exciting. And Dave Anderson, it's always a pleasure to have you here at the roundtable and sharing these best practices with our dealers.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate the time.
For more information, everybody, you can visit Dave on the web, evenflow.ai. You see his email scrolling bottom of the screen there, Dave A at evenflow.ai. And I see looks like a cell phone there, David. I think I've called
Yeah,
you on
yeah,
that
yeah,
number. I think that's your number.
for sure, for sure.
Well, everybody, any questions you may have, Dave Anderson is available to speak, and it's exciting because our industry is catching on to what he's doing. And Dave, I can't wait to come back and hear more in the next couple months about the great strides that you're making with our dealers and fixed ops. And congratulations to you, and exciting times ahead.
Yeah, thanks. So I can't wait to come back. Thanks again.
All right, Dave Anderson, everybody from Evenflow AI, here with us today at the Fixed Ops Roundtable.